The following is a paid advertisement. The content shared does not reflect the beliefs or opinions of Three Eagles Communications, Headwaters Media, or Heart of the Rockies radio management or staff.
All right. Hi, and welcome to the Living in Salida podcast. I'm your host, Monica McCarthy. I am a realtor and I specialize in Salida and surrounding areas. And in this podcast, we talk about all things living in Salida. So today we're going to lean a little bit more towards buying homes in Salida. Our guest today is a mortgage broker who can help you with that. His name is Jess Fisher. He is a Salida resident and a mortgage broker at Peakview Mortgage. He's also a U.S. Army veteran, and him and I have done some deals together, and I can tell you he's a really good communicator, and he does great customer service for his clients. So thank you, Jess, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So where we begin with all of the guests on this podcast is how you came to Salida. It's not a standard place unless you're born here. So what is your Salida origin story?
My Salida origin story started with a previous career that I had. Spent a lot of time in the outdoors. And for whatever reason, I just started coming down here for different courses. So got Swiftwater Rescue certified on the Arkansas, right in town. Got my wildland firefighter card right at Colorado Fire Camp. Avalanche training up in the mountains. I've snowmobiled up the mountains, fished the river. And so it really started being born out of this idea of wanting to be in the outdoors and the industry that I was in at the time. It also required me to drive around the state quite a bit. And I was always passing through Salida, or at least close to it on 285.
Gotcha.
And I just fell in love with it. It was a stop off for me. You know, I kind of look forward to that part of the drive, being able to stop off and go downtown and walk around a little bit, stretch my legs, that kind of stuff. And so really I started looking at it as I like this place. What else about it makes it desirable? And for me, it was getting out of the cities, but still having access. So you got access to Colorado Springs Airport for some flights. I mean, that is one of the easiest airports. I just flew the other day, and it was 6 minutes from front door of the airport to at my gate.
Nice.
It was phenomenal. You can get to Denver, so you can go to the events. You're not too far for whatever ball games or concerts.
Yeah.
But you get to leave all that craziness, come back to a quiet town. So really the location relative to getting some of the bigger city amenities, but also being able to snowboard Monarch in the winter, and on the off season, you can literally snowboard and then come down and fish the river in the same day.
Yeah.
And I don't really know of many places that have the access that Salida does, and then also the outdoor, opportunities and adventure. I'm a big snowboarder, mountain biker. I love to hunt, fish. Even for the hunters out there, there's a free county range with 3D targets that you can just go on at any point. Doesn't cost anything.
That's cool.
And they've just got some really great stuff here to be able to take advantage. And then as far as my kids go, this is as good as it gets to raise kids here.
Oh, yeah. How old are your kids?
My kids are 8 and 10 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been here? What year did you get here?
I moved here right before COVID, so 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, so it took from 2010 to 2020. A little bit more of the story is I was trying to organize my life to be able to get here, and it took me a while to do that.
Yeah.
But being able to organize, work and just all the things that go along with life to be able to make this a reality, and was able to make it just right before COVID hit.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I know that is actually the phrase some people use is, how do you make Salida work? Because it doesn't have a ton of industry. You kind of have to get creative when it comes to business and everything. So you made it work. It took 10 years.
Well, it took a little bit, but I'd say probably it took about 4 years of transition, moving into some other career choices, and then just kind of organizing things. And my kids were super young. So when do you make the move? When the right time is to make the move. And I really wanted my oldest to be here before fourth grade. That was my goal. And I got here 2 years earlier than that. So.
Oh, that's great. Where were you before?
I was up in Littleton prior to that. I've also lived in Golden Gate Canyon, Levita. So I've kind of been around as well. And that actually helps with the mortgage stuff as well.
That's true. Yeah. You're very familiar with this state as a whole.
Yeah. And buying and selling and buying and selling different markets.
Yeah.
I've sold some of my own homes as well too.
Oh, okay.
And so just really being able to like write contracts, know what the market's like, do my own market analysis, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that makes sense. That's a value add for sure for your clients. Well, so to continue on our Salida conversation, so you got here, you said was it before COVID 2020? So like January, because COVID was the beginning.
Yeah. So we started looking in January, and then it was, I forget, February or March. It was right before everything shut down hard.
Oh, wow. And then in Salida was a completely different place for a while, as was the entire world.
Yes. And inventory was low.
That's true. So you bought then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Good time to buy.
It was.
Smart decisions there. Okay. And so now you're here. What was give me a little bit more of your career path to becoming a mortgage broker. You said you were in a different industry before that had you travel around Colorado.
So
what got you there?
I was working when I moved to Colorado. I was working with Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Okay.
And I did that for almost 10 years.
Okay.
And through that process, that's when I was buying and selling some homes, and I've always been really interested in the real estate market. And at about 2018, I decided to move on, to another career. And I was mainly trading and investing and just getting more involved in real estate investing as well too. And so just being able to see that the industry has a need. I do think on the lending side, there tends to be, generally speaking, not as much education as I think most people want or are looking for, as far as, what's the process like? What does this look like? I see a lot of lending being very cookie cutter, when I think it's actually a very unique to that individual, their goals. I've had some lenders tell me, well, this is just the way that I do it. You fit in the mold or you don't fit in the mold. I like to look at it as a bunch of puzzle pieces, and how do we take what the borrower wants and fit all those puzzle pieces to create the most ideal situation for them, whether it's, how much they're bringing for a down payment, whether it's their monthly mortgage, are they trying to increase wealth through owning a home? Are they trying to find a place just to fit their family? Is it a second home? Is it a vacation home? And you can really skin the cat a bunch of different ways, in particular when you have access to a lot of different products make it fit for the consumer versus just, shuffling papers and moving numbers. So I think it should be a more personal experience.
Yeah. That makes sense. So you got into the financial industry and then became a mortgage broker.
And then became a mortgage broker, and I still do, my trading and investing.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a value add because I'm always looking at the market.
You are
always looking at the market every day.
Yeah.
So I have a very good perspective on the macro economic situation, and then being able to translate that to real estate and the real estate market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how that's affecting your clients on that day, right?
Oh, yeah.
One of the things you do is advise when to lock rates, right? And that's
so
been
important.
a fun one the past few years for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been bumpy. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about mortgage rates in a minute. But okay. So, and then you were also an Army veteran too. I don't want to skip over that part. I know that's further back in your history, but I think that's also a value add for your clients too. There's VA clients out there that you can speak to, I think, better than others. I would guess. Yeah,
directly. I mean, I personally used a VA loan. I've used it multiple times. There's creative ways to use it.
Okay.
And so, being in the Army, I was with 2nd Ranger Battalion, got in just about a year and a half after September 11th, multiple deployments, and then got out in 2007.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how do you think that shapes you as a mortgage broker and helping your clients now?
It has been the biggest eye opener that buying a home isn't that far out of reach, that there is so many different ways to do it. When I bought my first home, the way that I had it structured, I walked away with that home only spending $43 out of pocket.
Wow. What year was that?
That was in 2010.
Oh, okay.
That's
amazing.
I was able to get the sellers to pay all the closing costs. I financed it 100%. I got my earnest money back, and the only thing that left my account was $43. And so once I realized that changed everything for me.
Yeah.
Because, buying a home is such a great way to start to build wealth.
Absolutely.
And then, I would buy homes that needed a little bit of work, structurally sound, great homes, a little bit older. I'd come in and I would do, remodel the place, put in new floors, maybe remodel the kitchen and bathrooms over time. And then when I'm ready to move, I sell it.
Oh, okay.
And that was just a way, in particular with these increasing home values, that was just a way to just step up.
Yeah.
And I've been able, and that's part of the puzzle piece that allowed me to move to Salida.
Yeah. To have some cash in the bank to get here. Kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because homes are, home values here are different than Denver or, over in Kansas or Illinois or wherever. I mean, it's a significant difference to be able to be in Salida.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely a huge value add. So let's see. To get into a little bit more of the mortgage side of things. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about mortgage rates. So that's, I feel like, the big topic. Whenever I talk to somebody about buying a house, there's some ho-humming about those. So, or selling a house too. They're locked into low rates. That's a big thing we've seen as well. So tell us a little bit about what's going on right now. We're recording this at the very end of July of 2024. So depending on when you listen to this, it might change, but what's going on right now?
Yeah. Rates are between 6 and 7.
Okay.
And rates are a hot topic, but it's really about perspective. So yes, we're not down in the 3s like we were, 4s, whatever, below 5.
Yeah.
Right. Every kind of would like to see below 5 again at some point. We're not there anymore, but back in the 80s, we were in the high teens. And you look at the historical average of rates, that's high 7s. So really right now we're at kind of healthy market rates. It doesn't feel like it because people are comparing today compared to a few years ago when rates were a lot lower.
Yeah.
But that's all in the past. There's nothing we can do about that comparison. Here we are today with this. And so instead of looking backwards and saying, man, I wish rates were lower, I'm going to wait to buy till rates get lower. That's kind of holding on to hope. And one of the big things in trading and investing is hope is not a strategy. Here we are today. We are at 6s and 7s. If you were to buy today and rates go up to 12%, you look like a genius. If rates go down to 5, 5.5, whatever, then you refinance.
Sure.
So you can always move down, but you can protect yourself from having to move up.
Yeah.
Now, right now, it's the thought is rates are going to go down over the next however long year or two. But really, lots of times when people move, it's not really about the rate.
Yeah.
It's, getting a bigger home because their family's growing.
Yeah.
Wanting to move to a new location like Salida because they love the outdoors or moving because of a job opportunity. Those are kind of the, generally speaking,
big life changes.
See. Big life changes. And so if you can afford your mortgage for the next year or two and you find the right place or a place that's good enough to get you to where you want to be, then I say jump on it. And the main reason why I say jump on it is if rates come down, a lot of people that inventory is low right now. So a lot of people that aren't putting inventory on the market is because they're sitting at a 4.5%, 3.5% rate, whatever it is. And the amount of home that they can get would be less because now rates are higher unless they have an increase in income or something like that, a change in circumstance. So with that being the case, if rates come down, there's going to be more buyers coming on before inventory rises. And since prior to 2010, but we'll just say 2010, Colorado as a whole has been in an inventory shortage. We've been 10,000 homes shy of demand for a long time. There's not enough skilled labor, plumbers and electricians in particular, to build enough units fast enough to meet demand. So basically the inventory, somewhat comes from new builds, as we can see in Salida. We're seeing a boom in building.
Sure.
But a lot of that inventory is going to come from people who are sitting on low rates.
Yeah.
Once they start to bring the inventory in, the demand's already going to be there. So there's going to be, when the rates come down, I believe there's going to be a larger demand than inventory can handle. I think prices are going to continue to go up. We just hit all-time record highs recently on prices. Even with these quote unquote high interest rates, we still have high home prices. Well, why is that? Mainly because inventory is low. Demand's going to increase before inventory does, more likely than not. So then what are we going to end up with? Higher home prices. Yeah, your rate might be a little bit lower, but we're going to have higher home prices.
Yeah.
So,
doing the math on that, it doesn't always.
Yeah. So trying to time the market, just like in trading and investing, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
So if you can afford it and it makes sense and it fits your family or your lifestyle, or you're ready to start building some wealth, now's the time to do it. Even people sitting on homes at 18% in the 80s, depending on where you live, they still probably made money on their home. That would be my guess.
When they sold finally.
When they sold finally, and they were able to refinance when rates come down. So a lot of the talk is around rates, but I think it's more about the family or the individual circumstance that should drive it the most.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely.
Yeah.
And so, a few things I wanted to mention. So I have a YouTube channel called Living in Salida, and I've spoken with Jess before. We actually have a few videos on there about updates on the industry and buying land and things like that. So I wanted to plug that really quickly because we get into more details specific to land, for example. That's one video that I know has been valuable for some of my clients, but also just to say, we can get really in depth on this. And so be sure to check out the YouTube channel, Living in Salida, to get more information about that. But one of the videos I just wanted to mention is talking about renting versus buying. That's one of the first videos we did. And when you're talking about whether or not to buy now, I mean, one thing we're also seeing is rents going up. And so you can lock in your mortgage, even if it is at a 6-something% interest rate, that's not going to change as much as, say, your rent would. Right? So
historical rent increases are significant enough that they typically, not always, depending what rates are doing, that they're going to outpace the rates. Generally speaking. So if you can get into a home and lock that rate and you're good with the payment, then that's the way to go, because you're also building wealth at the same time.
Totally.
So as the value of your home is increasing, you are decreasing the payments at the same time, or the total loan amount. So you're adding value both ways by paying your mortgage and just time living in the home. Whereas renting, it's just going out the window.
Absolutely. You're paying your landlord's mortgage. And so, I think that's just valuable to consider if you're considering moving here. And, sometimes people rent when they first move here, but, buying soon is important. But then also, the one thing you mentioned was making sure you're comfortable with that actual mortgage. So that's a big one, I think, because it's kind of dovetails into what do you do if you're thinking of buying? And one thing I definitely like to stress to my clients, and I know you do too, it's not what you are qualified for, it's what you're comfortable paying. And sometimes those things are different. You could qualify for significantly higher than you actually want to be committing to paying every month, depending on your lifestyle. And so to find that sweet spot for you individually, I think is really important. Just to make sure you're not overextending yourself. So when you say a comfortable mortgage and you can refi later, don't get into a mortgage crossing your fingers to refi later. Get into a mortgage that's good now. And for the next few years, right? So what's the first step if somebody's considering buying here in Salida, which is a wonderful place to live, as we've discussed? What do you recommend that they do?
Get pre-approved.
Okay.
Right out of the gates, before, I'll say before you start looking on websites at homes, but
sure.
If you're like me, I'm already looking at homes,
Sure.
Before it's pre-approved, just to see what's out there. But getting pre-approved and knowing where you stand, knowing how much a lender's willing to loan you is really important. But then also doing a budget yourself.
Yeah.
Living in Salida versus living in Denver. If you have a job that requires you to commute, or you're going to be going back and forth a lot, thinking about the increase in gas.
Sure.
Right. Just the driving back and forth, and just kind of doing some of that budgeting to figure out what is realistic. Maybe not necessarily what you want, but what's realistic. And a lender can help, kind of shape that for you. But then I think too, it's up to the borrowers to really sit down and look at the budget and see what that is. Because trying to extend your means and crossing your fingers and hoping that, over the next 2 years, you'll be able to refinance. That's just an added stress that's not necessary.
Totally.
And also finding something that maybe works now. Okay, this works now. We'll be fine. Family will be fine for the next 3 to 5 years. It's not ideal, but it gets us to where we want to be, which is Salida.
Sure.
And then from there, you can start looking around and finding places. I mean, just Salida in and of itself, you've got properties down by the river, they're downtown, but then still being in Salida, you could be up on the mesa and you're getting more views and, you're kind of away from the downtown portion of it, but you're still in Salida and just kind of figuring out those pockets. Cause there is a lot of cool places to live in Chaffee County.
Yeah.
That, you don't really know until you start driving around and poking into neighborhoods and driving up the dirt roads and say, oh my gosh, there's houses back here. I had no idea, and so just kind of working through that. So if there's something that works for now, then do it.
Yeah. And so getting pre-approved. So what does that entail for somebody if they've never bought a house before and they want to know what that means? Does that mean?
Filling out an application with me and submitting some documents just so we can prove income, pay stubs, W-2, pretty standard tax returns. And then depending on the timing, maybe running credit and actually seeing what those debts are for sure, like the actual payments on those debts for sure, and what your credit score is.
And that's a big one too. So if you're planning on buying next year, you could still do this process now and then look at the credit score, because there are things you can do between now and the time you buy that could perhaps improve that credit score. That makes a pretty big difference, right?
A huge difference. So, for example, I have access to a credit upgrade team.
Oh, okay.
And, if you're at a 719 credit score, well, if I can push you up to a 721, that's actually going to possibly change your rate, or get you to 740. Wow. That's going to change your rate. So understanding that portion of it, but also the down payment portion. So for example, maybe you're coming to Salida for a second home or investment property. Standard's 20%, but if you put down 25%, there's a good chance your rate's going to be better. 30% rate's going to even be significantly better.
Gotcha.
And so understanding some of those things and starting the conversation with the lender, because if you are planning next year, well, maybe you can save a little bit more to where you can get to that 30% or that 25% down, as an example.
Yeah.
And there's also like the first time home buyer, which is a 3% down, or a 3.5% if you're doing FHA. But if we can maybe get that to 5%, we might see a difference in your overall payment and your rate.
Wow. Which can save you a lot of money.
A lot of money when you're talking 30 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With that, the life of the loan itself, if you go with a 30-year. So that if you start early, you're going to set yourself up for success in understanding some of these things and being able to maybe put away a little bit more money. Get your credit a little bit better.
Absolutely.
So it really, a lot of people try and find their house first and then just try and make something fit.
Yeah.
As opposed to doing all the work up front, which is what I try and do with all my loans. Even before I submit them to underwriting, I'm 97, 98, 99% sure that I've got everything. So as the lender comes back with any underwriting questions or document needs or anything like that, I already have it.
Yeah.
So there's no delay.
Or surprises. Nobody likes surprises in the transaction.
We don't like surprises.
Trust me. It's never fun. That's super helpful to have that in place ahead of time. Trust me, guys. And then so somebody is looking, and another thing I want to stress is doing this before you look at homes. I can't tell you how many people get excited about a house and then they can't do anything because they haven't actually looked at their finances. And so it really just makes sense for you, time-wise, emotion-wise, all of it, just to get your finances in order before you even step door in a house. Yeah. You can dabble on the internet, but don't look too seriously until you really know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's expectation management. I think a lot of what we do is managing expectations, and this is what reality is, or this is what the potential is right? In your case, show a home. They're like, well, I'm not sure about this or that. And you have the ability, because you've been in hundreds of homes, and be able to say, well, yeah, but you could just change this and it fits, And so being able to create the potential while at the same time managing the expectations. And if a borrower or buyer already comes in thinking that they're going to get X amount for, to be able to purchase a home at X amount, that, and then that's not going to be a reality.
Yeah.
Then it kind of slows it down, and then you have to kind of build it back up just as the borrower or buyer yourself.
Absolutely.
Instead of just coming in and be like, okay, here's our focus, here's where we're at. And inventory is not, super high in Salida, and you could speak more to that, but you don't want to be behind looking at things that aren't going to work.
Totally.
You're just wasting your own time, right?
Yeah.
As the buyer. And so just be able to stay focused and get in and find something.
Absolutely. And inventory in Salida has gone up some. The June numbers just came out, and we are a little over 6 months supply right now, but our days on the market went down too. So now we're at 10 days. Last month we're at 35. So, things you don't have a ton of time, and, good stuff's moving, some stuff's sitting. It's really a crapshoot on which one that is. And I can tell you, if it's really good, there's probably somebody else interested in it too. So you want to make sure that what's what before you step foot in there. And I always counsel my clients that too. And, even when I'm setting them up on searches, what's your absolute max? Because it's no point looking at homes that that you'd be too stretched to buy, or you can't afford to buy. Because it's just, that's no fun for anybody.
Yeah, it's stressful anyways. So
it's not.
Let's not make more stress to it.
Absolutely. So make the process as smooth as possible. So down payment, credit score, talking to the lender, and then just making sure you're familiar with kind of what you want and what you can afford before you even start looking. I'd say those are the biggest tips for anyone who's considering buying here. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think it's just getting started early. Because, in particular, if you're new to the home buying process, you don't necessarily know all the steps. And there may be like little stalls or stumbling blocks along the way, just trying to learn the process. If you have a good realtor and a good loan originator or broker that's working for you, we'll help you out with that stuff. But being able to keep it as smooth as possible, and if having a little bit of time allows for that versus, kind of a pressure situation. I got to get, an offer in now, but wait, I haven't been pre-approved and I need to get pre-approved today. And most people are working one or two jobs. So then you got to figure out time to take off your job to be able to get your documents together because you want it done now. And then the offer goes in, it makes it a little crazy, it's not necessary.
Yeah. Unnecessary stress. So avoid that as much as possible. And just kind of, being deliberate with that, I think matters quite a bit. And, just knowing what you want a little bit. You were talking and it completely, never mind, completely flew out of my head on what I was going to say with that one. But I just think it's important when you are thinking of buying here to, just be prepared, I think is a good point. And talk to, whether it's one of us or another. Obviously we want you to talk to one of us, but if it's another person in this industry to just help you be prepared so you're not wasting your time and energy. That's what I was going to say. When you are under contract on a property, so after you've already purchased it and even before, making sure that you have your documentation in order and that you're available, so you're not going on any big trips where you're not going to have access to internet or, stuff like that. So kind of your personal situation is allowing you to participate in the home buying process, because you do need to participate particularly when you go under contract. There's a lot of stuff that they need to send to you.
That's a good point, because when I've had everybody on board to get a transaction done and the borrowers are very, very responsive, I've closed a home in 11 days. Now that's not the normal. That's
sure
that was
the standards,
stressful.
30 to 45 days.
30 to 45 days. And a lot of that is just time.
Mm.
You know, you submit documents to the underwriter, they have 48 hours to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come back, let me know, hey, we need this documentation. So then I reach out to the borrower for the documentation if I haven't already got it ahead of time. That could be another day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, depending on how long it takes the borrower to get that document back. I get it back, I resubmit it. That's another 48 hours.
Yeah.
So that's where that 30-day window really comes in, is actually more transition dead time than like the loan that I closed in 11 days. That was as soon as I got the document request, I reached out to the borrower got it back to me the same day, and I either turned it in that night or the next morning. And so we were able to, get it done that fast. And that also comes with doing a lot of the work up front.
Yeah.
One of the big things I see with lenders, mortgage loan originators, brokers, is not doing the work up front. And I try and collect everything up front that I could possibly need. Mm-hmm. That way it's already in queue and ready to go. Yeah. So we can just have a smooth transaction,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good point. And two, I've done some stuff where people are in Mexico long term. A lot of the people that live in Salida like to travel, have life experiences, have homes or certain situations where they're gone for extended periods of time. That's great. Just have a means of being able to communicate. And if you start early, then you have that time.
Totally.
Instead of just trying to make it a pressure situation.
Absolutely.
Just makes it tougher for everybody.
That's a good point. Well, thank you. Anything else to add for tips for anybody looking to buy here?
I say just come down here, enjoy it, drive around, look at different places, because although we are a small town, the county itself is really diverse as far as places to live. I mean, the weather is different between Buena Vista and Salida. It's not really that far away, but there is a difference in weather. And so just really coming in and talking to people who have local knowledge, whether that's, the mortgage broker or realtor, or just talking to people in the community and really getting a good feel of it is a really great way to get set up for success.
That makes sense. Well, where can people find you if they are ready to get that pre-approval you mentioned?
Yeah, they can email me at jess@peakviewmortgage.com, or they can go to peakviewmortgage.com website and find me there as well. Those are probably the two best places to get a hold of me.
Perfect. And I'll have that information in the show notes as well. But thank you for chatting with us and sharing your knowledge of the real estate market and mortgage industry here. Thank you for listening to the Living in Salida podcast. I'm Monica McCarthy, a realtor who specializes in Salida and surrounding areas. And if you found this episode helpful, particularly if you have a friend that is considering buying here, please share it with them and subscribe if you can. I have my information as well in the show notes, so you can reach out to me there. And if you have comments, questions, or you want to be on this show, you can email me at livinginsalida@gmail.com, and we can connect that way. Thank you for listening.